Hello? Is the sound working? Can you let me know? Amazing, amazing. Um, so last time when I streamed last year, um, I was using my PC, but now I've swapped to my MacBook and I'm using OBS instead of Streamlabs OBS. So there may be technical issues, there may be features that were in Streamlabs that aren't in this. So it should be fine. I think I've got everything. I've now got Ko-fi things you can see in the corner there. So stream alerts for people who donate or sign up or all that sort of stuff, and then the gold tab there, and then the regular Twitch alerts should actually be working as well. So I just need to see if they work when they're needed. But other than that, everything should be virtually the same. I'm using a different layout, so it's not going to look visually the same either. But it should look fine. So I'm going to swap over to the iPad view. I think that looks fine. Yeah. And hopefully it's actually moving stuff about. So I'm not going to wait too long until we start properly. Just give a few minutes for people to come in and that sort of thing. If you are watching, just give me a ping in the chat. Hi, Lena. I've been given a ping, thank you. So yeah, what we're going to go over is a bit of colour theory. How to use colour theory practically in order to make your paintings and your colour use more interesting. This is something that I've only really just starting to get better at. It used to be, when I was at college, people would say, oh, you need to think about your colour use and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, if I'm working from a reference, then it should look like the reference. And that's not always the case, unless you're doing something that's hyper photorealistic. That's not always the case. Something that one of my lecturers said is that when we're creating stuff, we're not copying reality, we're enhancing reality. So we're making it look nicer, we're making it look more interesting. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to get wired in. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer under the ink lines, and then I'm going to go in and pick a colour. So usually what I tend to do, this probably isn't the most time effective method, but it's the one that works best for me, is that I create a flat layer below and then put more flat colours above that, so that I have a base layer that I can work on and then a layer on top of that. It really depends on what the most dominant colour is, but usually if you're drawing a person, the most dominant colour might be a skin colour. And for Wolverine, you can see that he's got his arms and his chest and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to use the skin colour as the base. So I'm going to go into a kind of pinky red. Apologies, and just go into that kind of area. And I'm going to change my brush to inking and Shadow Pen. And then I'm just going to fill in the parts so that I've got an outline, and then I can fill it in. So this is the most time consuming part, and it's also the bit where you're probably wanting to be the most considerate, because you want to make sure that you're getting in the lines and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to just going wild and then having to fix it later, which I am guilty of sometimes. But that's just me. I think other people have better methods for it. I know that you can use selection tools to make it a lot easier, but I kind of prefer the simplicity in doing it this way. I know there's maybe a bit of cleanup I'll need to do afterwards, and I'll need to double check things, but at least I know that I've done it the way that I like to do it. I've had a few requests for a colouring tutorial. The person that actually requested it is on a work trip and can't actually watch right now, which is gutting, but it gave me the idea to do it, and it means that I can kind of not take it super easy because it's like painting still got a lot of work, but at least I'm not creating a brand new piece. But yeah, and it's quite on point for the film coming out in July. So I was on a mad X-Men kick after X-Men '97. I just really enjoyed it. So I ended up spending like majority of March and April drawing X-Men stuff and not doing anything else really. But yeah, this is probably the most time consuming part in terms of like, I'm not going to say you're not creating anything, but it is more monotonous. It does take a bit more time than most other bits. If you're drawing or you're sketching or you're actually painting in colours, you're maybe using a bit more of your creative skills, whereas this is just a bit more time consuming. But it's not too bad. It's not too bad once you get it done. It's this is the hard part, and then once you've got all this in, it's when you can kind of go wild with the colours on top. And I'll show you why in a second. So I'll just bring that down a wee bit. You know it's further than the line work, but I think it would be better to colour in the full bottom part. It's going to get darker anyway from the reference. You can see that it kind of goes into the shadow, so it's just better to have it all done. In fact, this isn't taking as long as I thought it would. I think it's once you get into a groove with it, it starts to become a little easier. I wasn't actually intending on colouring in this piece at the very least, but sometimes I can't help it because I just want to go, oh, well, I want to know what this would look like coloured in, and I want to know how I would do it. So we could get to the end of it and it might actually have just looked better as a black and white ink drawn, but here we go. The good thing is that I've got copies of it, so it's not like it's going to make a big difference. That's the moment of truth. Is this actually going to fill in? No, it's not. I've missed a bit. This is the worst bit, when you've actually missed somewhere and I have to figure out where I've actually let in. And then I have to look and see if there's any spaces. I don't think there is. Give it another go. Yeah, there we go. And so what we'll do is we'll create a clipping mask on top of that. And then we can go in with the regular colours. So for the vest, I would go with a kind of very light grey as opposed to a white. In fact, what I'll do first is we'll change the background to a grey so that we can see the white against the grey as opposed to against the white of the page. And so we can just be a bit less refined with it, because the clipping mask is going to keep all the colours in the pink area of the skin, so we don't have to worry about going outside the lines as much. Obviously we want to colour in the vest in that correctly, but we don't have to worry about it going outside the main area. Like that. Oh, I'll do in fact, I've just realised that there's rips in the vest, so what we can do is we can just kind of erase them out. And it doesn't have to be perfect because it's just a small detail, but it shows when you have those details in. And then we can make a darker, kind of darker blue or grey, and then just do the dog tags. In fact, that's too dark. There we go, that's much better. Some of this stuff is trial and error. You just have to make sure it looks nice and it looks like it fits more than what the actual colour is, and we'll be able to colour it and paint it so that it matches the reference a bit more closely as well. And then the denims, they're quite a dark kind of navy denim, so we'll just go with that. And this is going to be slightly quicker. It's quite a large surface area, so don't have to worry too much. The one thing you don't want to have is little bits of a really stark colour jumping out. Let's see here what I've done. I've missed a little bit on the vest here, and it's really going to show through on what colour is the belt? It's like kind of dark tan, kind of brown, really dark. So you can go like that. Yeah, you don't want like colours like that will really show through, because they against a colour that it's more opposite to, it will be much more noticeable. So I'm just going to make sure I'm going over these areas, and I suppose when we're shading them, they will be a bit more. They'll be a bit more covered by the shading as opposed to just the blank flat colours. And again, I've missed this area. And then for the sake of simplicity, we'll just make this all brown at the moment, and then if we want to make this area look a bit more metallic, we can do it when we're painting as opposed to here. And then with this belt buckle, we can go with a kind of goldy colour, and then we can work on that after. And then we can use the same colour that we used for the dog tags for the claws. Just make sure we'll make them super extra shiny when we're painting them. And then the only thing we have to do now is the eyes and the hair. So the hair will be like a kind of dark brown. Yeah, a very dark brown. And this little flick. And then the mutton chops. Don't want to go too hard on the mutton chops that are on the face, because that will start to get rid of the skin colour. You want it to be a bit more a bit more of a gradient. You don't want to go to full brown on it to start off with. And then for the eyes, the best thing to do for eyes is just to have that kind of similar grey colour to the vest, because the eyes are not pure white either, and you'll be shading them in a little bit anyway. And I can't tell. Does Hugh Jackman have, what colour is he get brown eyes? I think he's got brown eyes, so we'll go with a brown eyes. If it doesn't, then it's a creative decision from me. He's got Betty Davis eyes. Yes. But I don't know what colour her eyes were either. I know her hair's hollow gold, Right, so there we are with the flat colours. And I can see a bit of pink here that I've left there. So what we can do now is go and make another layer under the flat colours, and that means we have a bit more free reign with the skin colour. So what we'll do is we'll go slightly redder with the skin colour, and then we'll change to a more painting brush, and then we'll just try to fill in kind of little bits of shadow here. Now obviously there's more shadow in the reference there, but we can kind of just make some marks to break up the kind of flatness of the skin tone. And it's just a gradual, we don't have to be super refined with it at the moment, it's just gradually adding in just a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Little bit of variety into this shading in the skin. And we can always go in and make it a little bit darker later on. But you can already see that that's creating just a little bit of spice, just a little bit of volume already. And we can go in a second time after this once we've done the kind of shading and just give it a bit more colour pop, so that it's not all kind of bland and kind of pink looking. And of course we could always go in with a little bit more we can always go in with a little bit more kind of like tan colours, considering it is so tanned. But right now it's good to get that kind of pink colour to give the life to the skin. If you don't do pink on, if you don't do like a little bit of red or pink on the skin, it just ends up looking quite flat. And I know that maybe the reference does look a little bit flat, but we want to make it a bit more interesting, a bit more vibrant than the reference. So we're just going to come in, and especially at the eyes, because the eyes are quite dark. We've already got quite dark ink lines on the eyes, but we can just subtly bring in a little more darkness, and then here at the sides of the nose. And then at the brow as well. We can just make sure we're getting enough shading in all these areas. And once you've kind of gone over it once, you'll be able to see the areas that you need to go in darker as well. Because if you go in too dark to start off with, it just ends up looking like really uneven. You want to kind of build up the tones and the shapes, because we're still making creative decisions. It's just bit by bit as opposed to all at once. And I'm just making it a bit more rounded. In fact, some of these areas could be doing with a little bit more of that kind of brown orange style. Let's go a bit more orangey, just a little bit. We can start introducing that And his arms, where he's clearly a bit more tanned. Maybe a little bit on the shoulders. Still a little bit, not too much. Right, and then I'll make another layer, and we'll go in with a kind of random colour. I do like having a type of lilac in there because it does bring out a lot more of the darker colours. So we'll just go over some of these darker areas, and it will help us bring out a little bit more shadow. Break up. I think it's more the style of the film that has a bit more kind of monotony in its colours. It's more like I think you remember that time where like every film was brown. Same with PlayStation games. They were all kind of brown, and there was just not really a lot of like variety in the colours. So we want to kind of bring that in, make it a bit more interesting. Just in little areas. We don't want to go too overboard because then it'll start to look like he's maybe bruised or something. But you can see that that's already having a little bit of an effect on. In fact, I might go in with I think the face is maybe a little bit too plain looking. It needs a bit more. I think it might just be because of how strong the light source is that I'm just not getting that in. Although it should probably be more under the hair as well. And definitely the brow area, actually, I've just noticed that there. It's about taking your time and finding the areas that need a bit more work. So I think that's looking quite good with the skin colour. So what we can do is on top of the purpley layer is that we can now start to do our kind of highlights. So we'll take the mid colour here and just bring it up to a bit lighter. And then we can start painting in just little bits of lightness. Because of how strong the light source is here, it's going to be really bright. So just don't be afraid to go in with a bit more brightness, but obviously you want to keep it measured. You don't want it to be too much. But obviously with a really strong bright spotlight like this, it is going to be quite bright. In fact, it's probably going to end up looking not bright enough once we get to the end of it. But it's already looking what we can do is in these areas we can be quite wide because it's taking over a large area. We can be quite quick with it. We don't have to really paint in every single vein or every single. We're just wanting to get an approximation of the values. And same on the chest. In fact, I'll bring that back down a little bit and just go over it. Yep. And same over this side. So there you can see that we've managed to kind of bring out the lightness and the skin tones, and then we can kind of move on to, oh, don't want to do that one. Let me do clipping mask, and then what we'll do is we'll do the shadows for basically everywhere else. So we'll be looking at this area, just getting a wee bit of grey. Now there's not going to be a lot on this top because a lot of it is being hit by the spotlight and it's causing it to overexpose because of how white it is, but we can still find little areas to darken to up the contrast of what the white's going to be. Because again, it's all about context and contrast to make sure that based on the colours around it, it's looking very light or very dark in comparison. So that's not too bad. Maybe darken this area a little bit in here. Maybe just a tiny bit at the shoulders, because there is a ridge at the shoulder you can see that's just a little darker. It's got a little bit of shadow in it. And we can just smudge that a little bit. Right, and then the trousers. Again, the trousers, because of the ink drawing, the trousers have already got quite a lot of shadow and texture in them anyway, but we'll go over it and we'll be able to properly darken down here so that it almost fades out. That's the old faithful chatbot. Yeah, I've got a new chatbot that will plug the Ko-fi page every half an hour. So hopefully it'll incentivize people to have a look and see what's there. Realised that my reference was zoomed in just a little bit too close and I was missing a lot of detail at the bottom here, but that's not so bad. Again, it's just getting in the big shapes at the moment and making sure that they are right, and then we can go over with the lighter colours. We can always erase or smudge to make sure that it's a bit more in line with the reference, but I think, yeah, especially this kind of right leg here is very dark. See if you have any other project spec kind of hit under contact. No, because you don't want to put it at the bottom because people won't see it. You want it to be a kind of call to action thing that people can see on the website. I actually think the denims were going to be like the hardest part because I'm really wiring into the kind of changes in tones. But I suppose like that's what denim is. It's got a lot of like variety in its shapes and its yeah. And then the claws. See, the claws don't have that big shadows on them, but we'll add a little bit because I think there's some here. I hope to add to the contrast of the I'll add to the contrast of the highlight once it's done that way. Where else? The belt will need a little bit of darkness on it. So we'll just come in. I've already put very dark ink lines on it, but we'll just give it a bit more. Because then we can go in and kind of brighten up some areas of it just a little bit. Especially here, I'm actually going to add a little bit of the grey in here for the metal on this buckle. Just a little bit, we don't want to go overboard because it's still meant to be quite dark anyway. Oh yes, the belt buckle as well. It's quite dark anyway, it's going to be quite hard to make out. That's why I didn't draw a lot of the detail on it, because it's being overexposed by the light. Didn't tell you earlier, right, because I thought I may have been going insane, but I'm hearing a wood pigeon all day and I have no idea why it keeps happening. A wood pigeon. Can you elaborate? Right, what about it? Why do you think you're going insane? Is it everywhere? Is it places where you wouldn't expect to hear pigeons? Oh, it's following you then. Right, so I'm going to do a little bit of shading in the eyes. Just the eye sockets, not the eye sockets, the white of the eyes. We don't need to do a lot of shading in the hair because that's already fairly dark from the ink lines, so we can just move straight on to the highlights for this area, which is good. And yeah, we can go quite close into the white for the vest, because it is very bright from the reference. So we just want to lighten this up a little bit. It will all start to make a little bit more sense colour wise once I make the background a bit darker, but it's better to shade in a more neutral, paint and shade in a more neutral environment, and that means you get truer to natural colours, or neutral colours I should say. A lot of painters will do that, they'll just kind of slap the canvas with any colour as long as it's a kind of neutral colour, just to get rid of the white of the paper, and then you can paint on that properly. Yep. And then for the trousers, it's going to be a bit more of a kind of like a wash kind of thing, because there is a lot of this kind of like creases and lighter areas. You can see it's already bringing out a little bit more of the life, so to speak, in the jeans. It's making them a bit more textured and a bit more vibrant. And we can start adding a little bit of different colours as well, because you can see that there's a bit of brown at the bottom. We can just start to add that little difference of colour that'll make it. In fact, I will add a little bit of a lighter part for some of the more creased areas. If I can get this to move, there we go. And you can be a little bit more fluid with it. Just make sure that you're getting, you know, that texture that you're after, that you can see in the reference. That's what we're really chasing, I suppose. And then we can go in with a little bit of brown. It's kind of light brown. Give it that kind of extra colour variation, I suppose. Quite happy with that. And then the claws. So the claws, we can go really white. Don't want to go perfect white, but we can go really white because they are shining quite brightly. And we can go over them with some effects afterwards to make them a bit more shiny looking, get the proper sheen off them. And then the same with the dog tags as well. Actually, dog tags very bright. And what I'll do is I'll add a little bit here so that we can see that there's shadow, and just indicate the writing on the dog tag. Don't have to go in, zoom in, and actually do the dog tag writing. It's going to be far away. We're not going to notice it anyway. So just give it a little bit of vibrancy, and then we'll go in here and just kind of put a little bit of highlights on the metallic bit of this buckle. And then the hair, which is going to bring up this area quite a lot, because this area is already really looking really dark, and once we start to lighten it, it will start to bring just a little bit of the piece up. A little bit. There's not a lot in the mutton chops, but even just a little bit will bring the form into the face just a wee bit. Don't have to follow the reference identically. Then we can make it a little bit lighter, just in little streaks. Little streaks. You can already see that's adding quite a lot of sheen to the hair, and we can do a bit more later on. That'll bring everything properly out. Maybe a little bit on the eyelids for the skin tone. I think that needs a little bit more lightness to it, because I think the eyelids have, yeah, they have just a little bit of, that's an eraser, reflective light on it. Right, and then I'm just going to some finishing touches for the colours and the lights. So first thing I'm going to do is create a new clipping mask and then an overlay layer. What overlay does is it puts on a new colour on top of it but lets the old colour shine through. And if you use a white on it, it just brightens everything up. You can kind of quickly go with an airbrush and just kind of go, right, well I want that to be a little bit lighter, a bit more. Obviously you don't want to go too hard like I just did there a little bit, but you want to do a wee bit in the claws as well. And actually I might want to darken up some areas, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another one and I'm going to add that little orange twinge again and just kind of help bring out the tone in the skin, because it's gone a bit flat, so I want to add a little bit more tone into the skin. Of course, don't want to go too heavy, so I'm just going to keep it light as I can. What I might do is go a little bit far and then just bring the opacity down a little bit. Evens out the rest of the piece. Okay. And what do we want to do? We want to add a little bit more texture on top of it. So, yeah, I'm going to get another overlay layer on top of this one. Clip and mask it, and then we're going to go into and find a brush that fits the kind of texture that we're looking for. I think that fits quite well. And if we just bring it down, it's really hard to see how white it is, but in the darker areas you'll be able to kind of make it out. Just a little bit of texture to break up the top a little bit. And then we can go on top of the ink layer and just add little bits of highlight where we want them. We can be really, really bold with these. So we'll go into inking and then find this brush, which I like to use for just a little bit of hair enhancement. I don't really go too far with it, but it just gives a little bit, in fact. What else can we do? We can add another layer here. In fact, we'll do it up here. Add a new layer, and then just a little bit of white. Then we'll get an airbrush, and we'll just put it over claws. Just give them a little bit of a shine, although it doesn't want to be too much. So bring it in a little bit here. And then because this has like a kind of black background, we'll see how the background looks darker. I can actually get it to, yeah. What we can actually do is make another layer, get a bit of the black, and just slightly soften the edges. So that he feels a bit like he's disappearing into the background here. And then what we can do at the back is, what colour is that? Yeah, it's like kind of grey. A warm grey colour. Bring that up and then just in fact, what else we could do can just smudge it a little bit, bring it in, and then at the very top again just add another layer. I'd just like to do this as a that's not that one. I might do this as a wee stylistic thing, but I'd just like to put a nice big highlight in the eye. And what else could I do? In fact, go here, get the airbrush back out, and just lighten up this bit just a little bit, because I think that's a bit lighter in the reference. So there we go. It's not 1-to-1. In fact, if I wanted to make it a bit more 1-to-1, I could go in a little bit, but it's about getting the essence of it. It's about recreating what's there. The shapes that we can see. Just going over it a tiny bit with just some of the areas that are standing out to me. Remember, there's nothing wrong with quickly retracing a little bit of it. Just to get a little more interest out of it. But I think that's pretty close. What do we think? Thank you. I think it matches the reference quite a lot. I mean, obviously, if you were to look at it 1-to-1, the pose is slightly different. He's swaying to the left, the right a little bit. You know, there's a wee bit that is different with it, but when it comes to the colours and all that sort of stuff, I think it really matches. So yeah, that's taken a little bit. It's taken a little bit less than I thought it would. I thought it would take closer to the hour mark, and then we could do some stuff after, but only 5 minutes off it. And I could absolutely go into this and micromanage it for a while if I wanted to. Just to get it slightly more closer to the reference photo, but I think it's really close. I think it's really good. Sorry, just micromanaging that a little bit. Oh, that would be good. That would be good. You like a good claw machine? So maybe we could see if we could get some plushies. Oh, you refreshed it. I do hate it when that happens, but it does happen. If you do find it again, let me know. We can see if we can go to one. I know that you're a bit off the cinema at the moment, but we could go and have a look. Oh, I see. So you only get it if you pre-order. Ah, you only get to try it once as well. That's rotten. Yeah, yeah. I know the one you mean now. Yeah, that's a bit rotten from them, but I guess they're just trying to get people back into cinemas because it's been really with how well they like. They were very happy to have people like going in and getting stuff on streaming, while the cinemas were shut, and now that they're open again, they want people back at cinemas, and people have realised that there's absolutely no point in going to the cinemas. But it is what it is. Right, well that's the second half hour gone. So, and now that we've finished that, I think I'm just going to call it there. Oh, it may only be North America. Yeah, it sounds like one of those things they do in the AMC theatres or something like that, but not bother here. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll just call it here. It was good to have everybody here and having a look at what's on. Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. I didn't expect it to take so long. It takes as short as it did, but it's a good time to get back into the swing of it, and then next week we can do something a bit more involved. So I'll start canvassing for ideas from people about what we want to see next week. So anyway, thanks everyone, and I'll see you again.